In this episode, I will share about my week from hell, which definitely put me to the binge eating test. Welcome to Confessions of a Binge Eater, the podcast helping women over 50 stop binge eating, feel in control around food, and lose weight naturally without ever needing another diet that makes you feel like a failure. I'm Tricia Nelson, a former binge eater and your host. So I have a confession to make. This past week became one of the biggest tests of my recovery that I've had in years. And I knew I needed to share with you because usually we learn not from theory, but from real life. And that's what I try to bring to you in this show. If you've ever wondered whether it's truly possible to heal from binge eating or emotional eating, especially when life gets really hard, I hope my story gives you hope. So last week, my 89-year-old mother who has dementia fell and fractured her pelvis. I got the call, and coincidentally, I was already on my way to the airport with my partner to fly to Massachusetts to be with my mother because we were going to drive her up to Maine for the summer. So as you probably know, when our parents get older, life changes. Suddenly, you're the one making decisions, advocating for them, coordinating care, trying to keep everyone calm, and somehow holding yourself together at the same time. It's emotionally exhausting. I'm grateful that my sisters live in Maine and they were able to drive down that day to be with my mom immediately as well. Now, my sisters and I love each other, and thankfully, we have a good relationship, but that's taken years of work. We've all been through our own journeys with food and trauma and codependence. And even though we've all come so far, turns out stress has a way of bringing out our different and difficult personalities. We each had opinions about what needed to happen and when. We each had different ways of handling things. And couple that with sleep deprivation, worry, hospitals, paperwork, and difficult decisions, there were definitely moments of tension. Then, of course, there was my 92-year-old stepfather who, because of his own age and limitations, didn't respond to my mother's fall in the way we wish he had, and which would have been best for my mom. So that was crazy. And then, as if we didn't have enough on our plates, we discovered that one of my mother's caregivers had apparently been manipulating my mother into writing checks to her for money my mother didn't owe her. So it felt like every single day another problem landed in our laps. And honestly, it was a week from hell. So much stress. And here's why I'm telling you all this. Years ago, this kind of week would have sent me straight to food. There would have been absolutely no question about where I was going to get my support. I wouldn't have needed to think about it or decide to overeat. It just would have happened automatically, unconsciously. Food would have become my comfort, my reward after another impossible day, my escape from all the pressure, my way to stuff when I was super angry at certain players, and it would have taken the edge off because I was overwhelmed. And that's what emotional eating is. It's about trying to soothe ourselves when life feels like way too much to handle. It's reaching for something to feel better when we feel so bad and afraid and stressed and angry. So the cool thing is that something completely different happened. Throughout this entire week, with all the stress, all the uncertainty, and all the family dynamics and very difficult conversations, I never once wanted to binge. I didn't have that familiar pull towards food. I never was thinking to myself, I deserve something, or what can I find to munch on? I just didn't go there. And I have to tell you, I'm amazed even to this day because I've had that experience time and time again. But I'm not telling you this because I handled everything perfectly. Very far from it. I got impatient. I had a few snippy responses to my sister. I was a little bossy with my partner. And it made me feel terrible, by the way, because he flew across the country just to support me and my family. He was there to love me and help me. And yet I was a little bitchy and bossy. But the difference was that I noticed it, I took responsibility for it, and I apologized. Years ago, I probably would have justified myself. I would have said, well, you don't understand what I'm dealing with, or I'm just under so much pressure. But my recovery has taught me that I don't have to always be right. Recovery has taught me how to repair. It's taught me how to own my behavior, say I'm sorry, and reconnect with the people who love me. That's what recovery looks like. It's not perfection, it's repair. It's doing the right thing, even when it's hard and humbling. So if I wasn't using food, what was I doing instead? I did what I've taught others to do for years because these are the same tools that saved my life and that I use today. I talked to people instead of isolating. I wrote in my journal instead of stuffing my feelings down. I prayed. I meditated. I went for walks whenever I could. I stayed connected to my spiritual readings every morning because I knew I needed to stay grounded. I also cried when I needed to cry. I accepted support from people who love me instead of pretending I had to carry everything by myself. Oh, I can be a good martyr. So those actions provided the comfort I used to turn to food for. People sometimes ask me, Tricia, do you ever binge anymore? And while I don't binge one day at a time, I definitely unconsciously get tripped up in small ways with food, like putting a little more milk or cream in my coffee than necessary, which does make a difference if you do that enough times. And you can listen to one of my recent episodes about that specifically. Recovery doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy or that parents don't stop aging. It doesn't mean that hard things don't happen, obviously. Recovery simply means that food is no longer your answer when those things happen. And I think that's a miracle. And I do my best to thank God every day. The miracle wasn't that I wasn't stressed. The miracle was that the stress never turned into food noise. I really hope you hear that because it's so important. I didn't become someone who's always calm and centered. Just ask my guy. I was stretched to the max this week, but I didn't need food to carry me through difficult emotions anymore because over the years, I've built healthier ways of caring for myself and dealing with hard things. That's why I often say emotional eating isn't really your problem, it's your solution until you have better solutions. And once you build those healthier ways of coping in your life, food slowly loses its job. It doesn't happen overnight, but it totally can happen. It can happen for you. So if you're listening today and thinking, if I had gone through what you went through this week, I would have eaten everything in sight. I want you to know that I completely understand that because I would have too, and I did. Once upon a time, that's exactly what I did to get through anything hard, even things that weren't hard. There's nothing wrong with you if stress sends you towards food. It simply means that food has become your coping strategy. And the good news is that coping strategies can change. Mine changed, those of my clients have changed, and yours can too. So instead of asking yourself, why can't I stop eating? Maybe ask yourself a different question. What do I really need right now? Who can I talk to about how I'm feeling? Do I need to get out pen and paper and write? Maybe it's time to pray or take a walk. Who can I turn to for support? Because food can never actually give us what we're hungry for emotionally. It can only distract us from our painful emotions for a very short time. So this week reminded me that recovery is real, not because life got easier, it definitely didn't, but because I no longer needed to escape it through food. So before I sign off, I'd really appreciate your prayers for my mom and our family. We're still navigating what the road ahead is going to look like for her. And I know so many listening have already walked this road before me with a parent with dementia or Alzheimer's. You very well may be caring for aging parents at this very moment. So thank you for spending this time with me today and for allowing me to share something so personal, which I tend to do anyway, but this is of a different flavor. If this episode encouraged you, would you do me a favor and share it with someone who struggles with binge eating or emotional eating or their weight or food noise? They may need to hear that healing is possible And remember this, you don't have to wait for life to get easier before you get support to stop binge eating. The most important thing you can do, and it makes all the other aspects of life easier to navigate. I would love to hold your hand and take you on that journey. I'll see you on the next episode. If this episode resonated for you, I invite you to take the first step on your healing journey. Go to healyourhunger.com and you'll find a quick quiz which will tell you if you're an emotional eater or a food addict or somewhere in between by giving you a personalized score and next steps for how you can begin your healing journey. I'm so excited to support you on healing your heart and feeding your soul. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of Confessions of a Binge Eater.